listening to Explorers in Ag Costa Rica edition. And today we have Henry as our guest with us. And I'm going to actually let Henry introduce himself, but we're super excited. Henry is coming from Purdue University. So he jumped on to be with us tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Henry and be with you, and we'll watch the chat for you, Henry.
All right. Thank you so much for having me tonight. So really excited to be here with you guys. I'm at Purdue University in extension. So my job is I'm the program leader for Ag and Natural Resources, and what I do is basically help coordinate the efforts of the university to support farmers and individuals and families in rural Indiana and in urban Indiana and all things related to agriculture and natural resources. So we do very similar things that the University of Minnesota does. Other than ag and natural resources, our largest program is specifically 4-H, where we work with over 200,000 kids around the state and the 92 counties that we have. So it's a very dynamic and it's really cool program, and we're really happy that we can work with youth across the state and talk about science and technology and engineering and math, and it's really something that we're very proud about it. So, but and also happen to be a professor in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. My area of specialization is wood products, so something different, unique, perhaps. But yeah, so we're very into wood products in the U.S. Think about this, like 95% of every house we built in this country has a wood structure. So we all have to, somehow or one way or the other, we always are in touch with wood, which is a renewable material. So really excited to be part of that because it's also, nice to involve with industry and those different aspects. So, all right, I'm gonna switch gears to my presentation. Okay, can you guys see that cover? All right, so what I would like to do today is to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of Costa Rica and what's going on, what has happened regarding natural resources and agriculture in Costa Rica. So for those that basically did the assignment, reading about the materials, what did you guys learn about Costa Rica? What was something that caught your attention when you were studying or you were getting preparing for this meeting? Don't be shy.
It does look like Ivor, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask it? Go for it.
Um, uh, uh, so like most houses, like when you drive, are just like wood.
Yes. So most houses that you see in the US, they have a wood structure. So they usually cover that with other materials, but that's something very unique to the US and Canada. That's what I meant. So yeah, 95% of those, they have a wood structure, which is pretty cool. All right. So a little bit about Costa Rica. Let me
Let's
start
see.
right here.
Hold on one second. Greta says it has resources that are more unique to us in Minnesota. Utica, cocoa, and more. It is all very sustainable. It is cool how trees are used as posts. They are very unique ways of building not resistant fence, not
Rock.
not rot resistant fencing, and that has been that there was bugs killing the bananas. Those
Yeah.
are some of the things.
Yeah, well, good, good. Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna cover. We're gonna be talking about some of those things like the yucca and the cocoa, and yeah, sustainability is one of those big things in Costa Rica, and we will talk a little bit about that, and we'll tell you also some experiences on my family, which is also what I want to share with you guys. So a little bit, these are some numbers, but just to give you an idea, the population of Costa Rica is a little bit over 5 million people. In Indiana, we have over 7 million people. I can't remember or can't recall the population of Minnesota. The area of the country is about the size of West Virginia. I don't know if anybody has been to West Virginia, but it's basically, a small country. One of the really cool things about Costa Rica is has about 4% of the world species of biodiversity. If you could look at this map right here in the bottom, basically Costa Rica is part of this bridge that connects the North America with South America. And, that's kind of like the way to explain that why it's so diverse, because it acted as a natural connector between the two portions of the continents. And that's what all those species basically met. And Costa Rica was basically the last country that emerged from the bottom of the ocean. And that kind of explains why it's so diverse, because we have a species from the north, a species from the south coming and merging there. Costa Rica is only about 2 hour flight from Florida, from Miami, and about 5 hour flight from Chicago. There's a direct flight. So basically you can fly from Chicago, from Atlanta, from Texas, like Dallas or Houston or Florida. So it's actually really cool because if I live in Indiana at 6 o'clock in the morning, I can be having lunch with my mom at 1:30 in the afternoon. So that's pretty cool. One of the other things about Costa Rica, as somebody put in the chat, is very sustainable. There was an issue with forest coverage, but now the forest has recovered and it's almost 60%. And one other really cool thing is, we talk about using wood as a renewable material. Costa Rica is also a country that uses a lot of renewables for electricity generation. Between 2021 and 2024, I believe almost 3 years in a row, the country was using only electricity from renewable sources like hydropower, wind power, solar power, biomass power. So that's actually really cool. And one thing that is perhaps a little bit different from the US, the country has no army. And that has been the case since 1948. So that's a long time, almost 80 years where the country doesn't have army. And that actually is pretty cool because some of those resources they actually invested in conservation, but a lot of that goes into medical services or health and also education for the public. So those are some of those key issues of Costa Rica. And if you guys have any questions at any time, just interrupt me. I love to say this. I grew up in a farm in Costa Rica, right? So the picture that I'm sharing with you is basically my family, and this is an activity that we used to do every month. The guy here with the blue stripe, that's my dad. That picture was a long, long time ago, more than almost 35 years. This is my little brother, and I'm the one that took the picture. And this is my grandpa, who is not with us anymore. This is something we did every month where we go out and harvest sugar cane. And then we process that sugar cane to get these blocks in here that you can see, which is some of that we use it for home consumption, but some of that we use it to sell to the local market. One of the other things we did is we have different crops in our farm. We used to do coffee and corn and dry beans and vegetables and fruits. We also have cattle, dairy and beef cattle. But I think most importantly, we live in a very remote area that we really didn't have a lot of access to like supermarkets and everything. So we have to really think about how we use everything we could have put our hands on. So, for instance, when we went to the store, we have to ride horses to buy things, and sometimes you get uh, things that came in a glass jar. So after we use the glass jar, the content, then we keep it in the house because we know that we have the opportunity to use that or to reuse that. We did a lot of that with some of the things that we had, so we try to basically reuse everything. Clothes we fix them, we pass them along to our neighbors. Sometimes even we pass it along to our friend, to our sisters and brothers. I have two sisters and one brother. Uh, for instance, we used to use wood to cook, so we use the ashes and we turn that into fertilizer. So again, really neat concept because it really help us to live with nature and trying to recycle and trying to reuse everything we have, so we didn't have to throw it away. Now these days we have that concept applied. It's something we call circular economy that you guys might be familiar with. You probably heard it, or maybe you will find out later on. So just kind of a little bit about myself and my family. So one interesting fact about Costa Rica is that about 60, 17 years ago, beef prices were, on skyrocketing, and uh, people people basically saw that as an opportunity to extend agricultural activities. So they started basically cutting down the forest to open space for cattle. Again, they didn't really see any value in having forests. There was no incentive. So basically, forest coverage went from almost like 70% in the 1940s to almost 20% on 1987. So in about 40, 45 years, basically, the forest was really, really devastated because they were opening this frontier specifically for beef prices and other crops. So that's something that we actually experienced. My grandpa bought a property early in 1970s, and it was almost covered with forest. So he just wanted to open room for cattle. So he called some friends, and they came and they cut all the trees, almost all the trees, to open room for cattle. And again, it's just because he didn't see an opportunity. He didn't see an economic value or any advantage of having the forest. So that happens, and then basically with the government and people, they realize that they also need the forest. So it's all about how do you live in a sustainable ecosystem that where everything is important. So late 80s, early 90s, they start with these strategies to basically protect the forest and bring it back. So several programs they actually started. One of them is called Payments for Environmental Services, that it was implemented in the mid 1990s. And what this program does basically, it provides money to people to do reforestation or just to protect the forest. My family, as you can see from this picture, they are actually part of that program. We started in this program about 20, 25 years ago, and we get some of these incentives to keep the forest. We don't really do anything with it. Interesting is that the money to support these programs basically comes from a tax on fuel. So what it means is if you ever go to Costa Rica and you rent a car, every time you fill up your tank, 3.5%, which is like for every dollar, 3.5 cents, they will go into this fund that is used to pay for this environmental services to farmers. So anyway, this is kind of a picture of the a sign that you have to put in your farm, so people know that your farm is actually under that incentive, which is really really interesting.
Henry, we do have a question. And the question was, did you each have your own horse to go to the store?
Well, interesting enough, we only have two horses in a farm. And when we usually we used to go to the store on Saturdays, and my mom and my dad, they will make cheese during the week, and on Saturdays they will bring that cheese to the store, and they will trade that cheese for food. And they used to bring me. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I remember that the most fantastic. It was. I love going to the store because then they will get candy. It was this hard candy that I truly enjoy. But yeah. Later on, we everybody had a horse, but at the beginning it was only a couple of horses.
I have
Great question.
another question that says, what percentage of Costa Rica's population is farmers?
So not a lot. So probably between maybe I'll probably say 1 to 2% of actual farmers, and I'll show you some of those numbers. Uh, what what type of cheese? It was basically, gosh, what is that called? Um, the one that is really tender that you make at home. Can't remember the name. Um, anyway, it wasn't that complicated, but that was kind of like one of the main economic activities that we had on the farm. So it was really cool to be part of that. Okay. All right, great question. So I want to show you this picture because this is kind of like the opposite in the opposite direction. Again, you see on the right side, you see how the forest coverage on the 1940s, and that how the forest coverage will start going down from 75, 72, all the way to 87 when it almost reaches 20%. But then after those strategies start kicking in, policy and all that work to protect the forest, uh, as you can see from here, by 2010, the forest was back to 52%. Today, it's about 60% forest coverage in the country, which is really good. This picture um, that you can see in here is one of my favorite places. It's a waterfall in a place called La Fortuna. So if you ever go there, this place is very famous because they have a volcano that it has this perfect round shape that you can see basically from town, and it has all these different places, including this really cool waterfall. I think I see another question in the chat. What type of food? So basically, the main food we ate when we were growing up was rice and beans. Uh, we usually have that for lunch, and then we have some salad, and then we have some protein. That could be or chicken or pork or beef. And also we have a lot of fruits. Sometimes we didn't have the rice, but we'll have potatoes, or we have other type of roots, a lot of dairy, sour cream and cheese and milk, of course, a lot of juices. So really, a lot of variety on their diet. So that was something, that we always had. So that was neat to have. All right. Okay, so this is kind of a interesting picture because what I really want to show you guys is if you put the forest in the middle, it brings a lot of benefits, right? So for one thing, you have if you look to the right, you have fixation. Why is important? Because trees, they sequester carbon. All that carbon that is out there from human activities like using cars and factories, trees can get it back and they can store it, which is really cool because it helps us to clean to have the air clean and free of carbon. If you look at forest is also a good way to protect our water. Right now, water is really important for a lot of reasons, so forests help us with that. Obviously, if you look on the bottom, the forests also help us to protect or wildlife and all that biodiversity that I mentioned before. It's all because the more forests you have, then the more ecosystems and habitats you have for animals and birds and insects and all type of things. And just to give you an idea, in Costa Rica, they also have the same deer that we have in the US, the white-tailed deer. It's just a little bit smaller, but it's the same species. The deer was almost went into extinction, but now the population is back. And other animals like jaguars, their population is very healthy, is growing. Mountain lions and peccaries, macaws like the red macaw almost went extinct, now is back, and all that because all that effort to protect the forest. And the last thing, if you look to the left, you can also use the forest for economic development and for social aspects, right? People love going into the forest because you can enjoy, the trees, you can enjoy nature, you can enjoy the fresh air. So it means that people are willing to travel to the forest, and there also implies that they will sometimes will have to, spend money, and they might have to go to a restaurant, or they will probably gonna need to have or spend the night at a hotel or rent cars or even fly. Like in Costa Rica, a lot of people go there. So it really brings this, it's not just about things around nature, but also it generates a lot of economic development and also provides and help people with mental issues. Again, just a little bit more numbers, but just to kind of give you some perspective. So if you remember, the population of Costa Rica is 5 million. But look at that. We have about 3 million people coming from other countries. Most tourists that Costa Rica get, they're from United States, Canada, and Europe. And they really go there because they truly enjoy, they truly like to go there to enjoy nature. I see another question. I didn't have a favorite restaurant because where we were, we live in a farm very, very far away. So we didn't really have access to restaurants. So most of basically what we did, what we ate, we just cook it, at home. When we have to go to town, we have to ride a horse for about 3 miles, and then we have to walk for a little bit, and then take a bus. Sometimes we go to town, and there was this really nice deli in the local market where they sell this thing called empanadas that I truly enjoy eating. But that was kind of like my favorite thing to eat when I was growing up on that farm. So again, these are some numbers. You can actually see that tourism is a very important activity for Costa Rica. And again, if you take care of your forest and if you protect that forest with this specific areas, you can actually, make it better for everybody, including the locals. And you're going to see a lot of people coming to see the forest, the volcanoes, the beaches. They can go into the river. They can do water rafting and all these different outdoor activities. Yes, we have to pay taxes. That's something that it happens everywhere. Yes, we have to pay taxes. So great questions, guys. Great questions. Keep asking. All right, so let me just talk a little bit. Now let me transition from natural resources. And now we kind of saw why natural resources is so important and how natural resources can help a very small country like the size of Costa Rica to not just protect, ecosystems, but also to bring economic development and, and then provide some specific, income for families and all that. So, what did you like better? Oh, I like them both. They both have great things. I love the U.S. because it's a country that is very diverse. There's a lot of opportunity here to do great things. I love going into the West Coast. I love in the Midwest, but I think it's really nice. I love agriculture. There's a lot of agriculture here, but also there's some really cool things in Costa Rica that we cannot find in the US. So I'm very blessed because I can, we have property in Costa Rica. We have our family there, but also we've been living here for almost 25 years. So I truly like both because they both have really good things. And sometimes they have things that perhaps we don't like, but that's what happens everywhere. All right. So you probably also heard about coffee, and maybe some of you might drink coffee already. I started drinking coffee when I was early, and it's something that I do every day. So coffee has a very long tradition in Costa Rica. It started, coffee planting started very early, about 225 years ago, 200 years ago. And it was the economic driver of the country for many, many years. Uh, Not long ago, maybe early or late 1990s, the country also made a big switch from an ag-based economy to technology-based economy, and they started attracting a lot of what we call technology companies like Intel, for instance. And that was very good because that created a different niche market. And today, the country is also a really good place for semiconductors manufacturing, and the medical industry also has a lot of facilities in there. So anyway, it's interesting, but the point here is for many years, coffee was the main thing. It's still coffee is a really important crop. As you can see this map from Costa Rica, coffee is kind of growing in kind of high altitude between 1,200 to 1,800 meters, which is about between 3,000 to maybe 5,000 feet. That's what you see, these brown spots on this map. That's what you see coffee growing. The picture here kind of shows how like a coffee plantation looks like. And this was, again, growing up, this was one of, when I was in high school, in middle school, this was my summer job. My summer job was just picking coffee. And I really miss that because it was a very social activity. As you can see from this picture, you see these rows of bushes. So everybody will get one of these rows, and you put a basket in your waist and you go and you pick coffee. And all day you will be talking to somebody about, school or your future plans, or how much money are you going to make and how you're going to spend the money, or people will start singing and telling jokes. So coffee in Costa Rica, most of coffee activity, they require a lot of labor, so it's very social and very labor intensive. And again, something that I kind of miss because it was really cool doing that outdoor activity in these beautiful, beautiful places. So again, these are some interesting facts that you can see from here about coffee. And anybody here likes coffee? Yes, we used to have a coffee bean farm, and we still have a little bit of coffee. My brother-in-law, basically, he started producing coffee. So we don't really farm. Yeah, other than coffee, we farm corn and vegetables and fruits and soybeans. I see a lot of questions in there. Yeah, sugar. We also did sugar cane. My dad also, at some point, he also grew tobacco products. Not that doesn't happen anymore, but we did a little bit of everything. All right, so that's coffee. Let's move into the next one. Pineapples. Who likes pineapples? This is one of my favorite fruits. And Costa Rica is the number one exporter in the world of fresh pineapple. 95% of the market um, of the pineapple in the US is coming from Costa Rica. So it means that 95 pineapples over 100, they will be coming from Costa Rica. Pineapples used to be grown in Hawaii. I don't know if anybody has been in Hawaii, but it suddenly become more expensive to do that type of crop. So they find out that Costa Rica had similar or even better soil and climate characteristics. So they start moving into Costa Rica early in the 90s. This, you can see in this map of Costa Rica, this orangey spot, this is where you see the pineapple. The pineapple is kind of growing in the lowlands. It's a big industry. It produces a lot of benefits, but at the same time, as you can see here, it's got some issues, right? Like soil erosion, forest fragmentation. They also use a lot of pesticides, and it's kind of hard to control those things. But again, big industry because it creates economic development, but at the same time, it has some issues, specifically on the local level. Okay, another question. What was the funniest thing you ever did? The funniest thing I ever did. Gosh, I love going into the river and fishing and swimming in the river. I truly enjoy that, especially in those summer months. That was something that I truly enjoy. So I like fishing, and I know you guys in Minnesota, you have a lot of fishing. So if you guys like to fish, that's great because I love doing that when I was a kid. All right, I see somebody likes pineapples. All right. Bananas. Now here's another one that you probably know. Bananas are also another big crop that they have a very long presence in Costa Rica. In about 1870s, I know I'm saying all these things that happened like a million years ago. About 150 years ago, the government contracted with an American called Henry Meigs, and he was a railroad entrepreneur, and he has developed railroad ways in South America and countries like Peru and Ecuador. And he came to Costa Rica and he contracted with the government because the government wanted to build a railroad from the Central Valley to the Atlantic coast. So he took in the contract, and at some point, the government didn't have any more money to pay him, so they pay him with land. So he ended up owning about 800,000 acres of land along the railroad. So he figured it out that, oh, they started thinking, hey, I got to do something with this land. So he started basically planting bananas, and he said, you know what? I can economically and start planting bananas, and I can take those bananas all the way to New Orleans, to Louisiana, to the U.S. So he started doing that. So he was an American with this vision, and he started a company called United Fruit Company that basically started 1880s, it's still there. And again, it's very interesting because it's so connected with somebody in the U.S. But again, a lot of people work with bananas and banana plantation. Um, but it has some issues, for instance, pesticides, labor issues. But again, a lot of those bananas that you find in the supermarket, they also coming from Costa Rica. All right, let's see if I have another question. Okay, somebody's fishing. There you go. Fishing is good. They have not necessarily they have one type, but like the bananas and the pineapple today, they have been what we call they're called genetic modified organisms. They have been modified so they taste better. They're probably a little bit bigger. For instance, pineapples, when I was growing up, we didn't have that. And eating pineapples, and when I grew up, they were very acid to the point that it will like even cut your tongue. Today pineapples are sweeter and they don't do those things, but yeah, there's have been some changes in the way we produce those products, not necessarily that they're produce harm to humans, but they're being modified to appeal more regards of taste and appearance and all these different things. Somebody else like surfing. Well, I never tried surfing, but definitely Costa Rica is one of those places that you can go for surfing. Great questions, keep asking. All right, so next one is African palm. This is an interesting crop that perhaps you don't know too much about it, but it's like a big palm tree that produces these fruits that you can see here in the middle. And what they do with these things, they basically produce oil. And this oil is used for food products, but also is used for biodiesel. I don't know, but you're probably aware that with the corn that we harvest in the U.S. in places like in Minnesota or Indiana, we produce ethanol that we use in cars. And with the soybean that we harvest in the U.S. and in places like Minnesota and Indiana, we also produce biofuel. We call it biodiesel. With African palm, we can also produce this type of biodiesel. So it's one of the main sources of renewable fuels in this country. So this particular crop is kind of mostly is growing here in the southwest of the country, specifically here by the border with Panama, that you can see huge extensions of this type of palm that is, it really has a huge economic impact for those rural populations. Yeah, so bananas basically they're doing they're reproduced by plant like the actual plant we produce the main stem, and then you see two or three more stems coming. So you will take one of those little stems, and that will be your new banana plant. That's the way it's reproduced. Awesome. All right, another interesting one that I mentioned this at the very beginning is sugarcane. For instance, the sugar that we have in the US is mostly produced from corn. The sugar that we use in countries like in Costa Rica is produced 100% from sugarcane, which is easily to produce. Growing up, this is one of the things that I really enjoyed, that it was going into sugar cane that we have, and I use a machete, and basically I just cut one and I just peel it off and I just eat it. Basically, you just chew it. So it's an important crop. As you can see in this map, it's a little bit on the northwest side of the country. It's really nice to see it when you drive because you see all these flowers on top. So it looks really cool. It generates a lot of employment. But again, one of the biggest issues with sugarcane is it's very hard to get labor. Growing up, when I was a teenager, we have a little bit of sugarcane, as I mentioned, just enough to produce some of that sugar blocks that I show you. But working on a sugarcane harvesting was one of the hardest things that I did growing up, because sugar, the peel and the leaf, they had these little tiny needles that we basically will get into your skin, and you have to wear like really long clothes and protect your hands, and it's super hot. So again, that was a very hard agricultural job that I got to do a few times, and I truly didn't enjoy it. I really like picking coffee. That was actually pretty cool. Uh, yeah, there's several companies in Costa Rica that you can get the sugar that is made out of sugar cane. You can just you can just buy it on the store. You can also get those blocks I show you that is more rustic and that is homemade. You can definitely get it there if you go whenever you go to Costa Rica. All right. Cattle, we haven't talked about cattle. Cattle is still really important. Remember what I told you that the country probably it would just went crazy if you're moving forests to have cattle, but still cattle, it occupies about 20% of the extension of Costa Rica, of the land. There's dairy cattle, there's beef cattle. Growing up, we have both. We have about 15 to 20 dairy cows, dairy cows that my dad will milk, and that's how we produce that cheese that I mentioned before. But we also have about maybe 50 to 75 heads for beef. So for us, was very important because it helped us with this. It helped us to diversify. But some of the issues basically it's related to low productivity. Costa Rica, it's not as productive as in the U.S. for specifically for beef cattle. Again, people don't, they still see some sustainability pressures coming from cattle because again, it's kind of you have to decide, you want to have cattle or you want to have, forests and things like that. So those are some of the issues we see in there. We did have other animals. We have pigs and chickens and turkeys. That's what we have other than cattle. We never had goats or sheep. They're not very common. Sheep is not very common in Costa Rica. Goats, sometimes you see them. What type of cows? So we have Brahma cattle, we have Indo Brazil, and we also have for the dairy, we have my dad liked Jersey cows because Jersey cows are easy to handle. So those are the cows we had. And I guess some of you probably you guys show animals at the county fair and the state fair. I guess you're familiar with all type of cows, right? There you go. Thank you, Sierra. Good stuff. All right. So then I also need to mention poultry. Poultry is also an important type of agricultural activity in Costa Rica. There's a little bit over 500 farms, very productive. My cousins, they actually have a chicken laying farm. And what they do, they used to sell their eggs to the supermarkets and other buyers, but right now what they do is because they grow so much, now they have what we call a liquid egg factory. This is a facility where they process the eggs using automation, and they split the clears with the yolk, and they package those and they sell them to hospitals and places like McDonald's. They're really doing well. So again, for poultry is really important in Costa Rica for meat, for eggs. And one interesting thing is because Costa Rica produce almost no corn and no soybeans at all, they have to import all the corn and soybean for feed for poultry from the US. So almost 98% of that feed is coming from the US, from places like Indiana and from Minnesota. Oh gosh, that's a really hard question. but you can see the answer right there. So they think that it's about 750 million eggs per year. That's how much, that's the calculation they have for how many eggs are laid each year in Costa Rica. All right. Okay, and one more. I'm bringing this up because it's also an important industry. A lot of people work here. We didn't have like a lot of production with in the side industry when picked. We just have a few just for subsistence. But again, it's kind of an important issue. One of the biggest issues of this industry, as you can see here in the issues, is pollution, specifically that smell. My mom and they live very close to one of these facilities, and basically the entire neighborhood they have to, you know, uh, basically come up with talk to the local municipality, and then they got to talk to the local office of the Ministry of Agriculture because the odor was really bad. And finally, this producer, they were able to control it, and now it's a little bit more of sustainable, and they manage better that contamination. So again, it's one of those issues that you see in this country. Sometimes regulation, people sometimes don't like regulation, but sometimes, like in this particular cases, regulation is good because, you might, you like to protect people, right, against this thing. So anyway, that's something that my mom and my dad experienced, but the problem was actually fixed thanks to they have to find, even they have to find a lawyer and get the local municipality involved. So this local producer was actually able to reduce those issues. So um, again, one of those other things. Okay, so that's what time. So some other crops that we have in Costa Rica. Does anybody likes mangoes in here or chocolate? There you go. Yeah, kinda. Mangoes are really cool. I love mangoes. I love chocolate, cacao production. These are the cocoa seeds that you see there. There's a lot of, especially small producers, all many different type of fruits, but also like vegetable production is huge in some places around the volcanoes in Costa Rica. All different type of fruits, different roots like potatoes, like cassava, carrots. All those are also produced. So it's a very diverse agriculture. Yes, I agree. Chocolate is it's really good. It's the best. Okay. All right. So, and I would like to conclude saying, these are some of the issues. I think somebody asked the question, how many people, I think it was farmers, but I don't really have exactly the number. I can tell you that, a little bit over 13% of the Costa Rican population, they're involved somehow in the agriculture sector. So it really, it has an important contribution to the economy of the country. One thing about Costa Rica is you're a small farmer like we were, you have a very diverse ag system in place because you will have livestock, you have chickens, you have hogs, you will have dairy, you will have beef, and then you will have coffee and corn and sugar cane, and you will grow vegetables. In a very small parcel, maybe think about 5 acres to 10 acres, you will have a lot of that. And people can really live into that. But again, it's something very unique because being a tropical country, you have opportunities to grow things basically all year round. That really makes a difference. Another thing that you probably need to remember if you ever go there is Costa Rica is one of the main economic drivers is ecotourism, and all of this happens because the country it learned his lesson from deforestation, and now the forest is back, and now they use the forest not just to protect natural resources, but also to invite other people from other countries, like from the US and from Canada, come in and enjoy nature. Another important thing is the country uses a lot of renewable energy for that purpose, for electricity production. Most of that energy is renewable is coming from hydropower plants, but also wind and solar and biomass. Just like any other agricultural country, there's some of the issues are related with the high use of pesticides. So this is something that is it should be regulated a little bit more. I think in the US, we have a very good system where we regulate use of pesticides, and something that perhaps Costa Rica should be doing a little bit better. Deforestation is still a concern. It does, even though the forest has recovered, a lot of those big corporations that plant bananas and pineapples, they want more land, and when you have a very small country, you don't have any options. So sometimes they will try to, sneak in a little bit more of ag. They will try to change forests to agricultural land, which could have some issues. I mentioned labor. A lot of most of the agricultural activities in Costa Rica are very labor intensive. So it means you need people. You need people to pick coffee, to pick pineapples. You need people to pick oranges. So it's not like in the US that we have a lot of automation, but labor is it's a challenge because a lot of people don't want to work on the field. So they have to bring sometimes people from Panama to help picking coffee, and sometimes they have to bring people from Nicaragua to help harvesting sugarcane. So anyway, so those are some of the issues. And with this, I would like to conclude and say that that's my name in there, so you guys can remember. That's my email. If you guys have any follow-ups after today or want to learn more about Costa Rica, I'll be really, really happy to, keep the conversation. But for now, if you have any further questions, please let me know. Happy to answer all of them. Thank you.